Hello, we are back. Welcome in to the KNL Sports Huddle. I'm Cage Kiplinger and joined as always by my good friend Logan Hubert. This is our weekly podcast. We break down the top stories in the world of sports. How we feeling today, Logan?
Doing great. I believe this is episode 8. Time's flying. I feel like we just got this
Yeah,
started, but this
two
has already
two
been
months
great.
down.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, we had a lot happen over this past week. Obviously, the NFL draft. We're going to go into all the top stories that came out of the three-day draft. NBA playoff games. Some interesting series leads that we have right now in the first round. We also got our who's hot, who's not in the MLB after about a month into the season. And then we've got a little bit of Kentucky Derby talk, give you some picks for this coming Saturday for the big race at what's the place called?
Churchill
Churchill
Downs.
Downs. That's right, Churchill. We went there for a field trip one
Yeah.
year in grade
Yeah.
school.
Sixth grade, I believe. Yeah.
I mean, how many high schools get to go do that
Yeah.
for their field trip? We got to do
Yeah.
that. We got to do
We were lucky to live close enough to it. So.
Exactly. But before we continue, if you are listening on YouTube, just make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Our channel at KL Sports Huddle. We'll just greatly appreciate it. If you're listening on Spotify, go ahead and follow us, give us a rating and review. We're also on Instagram. You can see us in short form. We post clips as well as breaking news on there. That's at Huddle KL Sports. So you can see all our content on there. But let's get started with the NFL draft. So obviously we know where to take this to start. The biggest story coming out of all 3 days of the draft, because it lasted that long, is Shedeur Sanders slipping to not just outside the first round, not outside the second, not the third, but outside the fourth round, getting picked by the Cleveland Browns in the fifth round. I just want to get your initial thoughts on the 3 day draft and what transpired.
Yeah. I don't know if we've ever seen anything like it where everybody, when I say everybody, I mean like the top scouts at ESPN, NFL Network, all the big sports networks, have had Shedeur as the number 2 quarterback. Some even have number 1. I thought that was a little crazy, but pretty clear top 2. Excuse me. And going all the way to the 5th round. Like I don't even know if there's ever been like a defensive player who was like a projected late first round pick go all the way to the 5th round. Yeah, that's my initial thoughts on it. Yeah, go ahead and share your full opinions on it first, and I might dive into what I really think about it.
Yeah, so after the first round commenced, like I wasn't overly surprised. We could kind of track it through the past few weeks that his draft stock was not plummeting, but dropping. He wasn't being looked at on the level of a Cam Ward as much anymore. And so when he slipped out of the first round, I was a little surprised. I thought that he would go to Pittsburgh. That I thought was going to be the landing spot for him.
Pittsburgh, or when the Giants traded up.
Right. I'm thought. There you go.
Yeah.
They're going to pick Shedeur. They ended up picking Jackson Dart. Big surprise that he was picked over Shedeur, but it didn't end there. Day 2 was really when the story blew up, dropping out of not only the second but the third round. And my first question in all of this was what happened in the pre-draft interviews. It was reported that at least 2 coaches said he was unprepared and disinterested for the interviews. And I can kind of get that. He's Deion Sanders' kid, and I could see Deion being a similar way. And I just think when you couple his overhyped draft stock that I think a lot of pundits, talk show hosts, yada, 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 had on him coming in, as well as the baggage of being Deion's kid. I know they're like recording a reality TV show around the family as well. You got to do the interviews well. You have to come in dressed to impress, say all the right things, even if to a certain extent you don't believe in what you're saying. You have to go in there like any other interview. You're there to impress them, and I just think he didn't take it seriously. So I thought the 5th round was a little harsh considering his talent. I think he is one of the more talented players in this draft, considering it is a weaker draft. But I couldn't believe that Cleveland picked them. I think that was the last straw of like, why does Cleveland pick them in the 5th round after they already draft Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd, which was drafting that was a reach.
Yeah. I think I'm pretty sure there is some story about Dion whenever he was going through the draft process about how I think it was the Giants asked to interview him, and he asked them where they were picking, and I forget where they said, like, it was sometime, I think somewhere in the late top 10, and he said, "Yeah, I'm not interviewing because I'm not going to be there by then." Now Dion was a perennial like top pick. Like there was really no debate.
You can do that.
You can do that whenever you're projected. And then he backed it up clearly when he was actually on the field. But so my take on it was after I think it was the interview process and the entitlement and he didn't work out of the combine. I think that just was a red flag for teams like the Steelers, who always have interesting characters on their team, and so that's big right there. But even teams like the Saints, some might think they would have taken him with their 9th overall pick, and a couple other teams. But I was even thinking the Rams were tinkering with the idea, considering Stafford's not going to be there much longer.
Right.
But so, and then once you are in the late round 2, you are drafting basically a backup quarterback. Now, a late round 2, round 3 guy has a higher chance to rise up to become a starter than later round, but essentially you're drafting a backup quarterback for the time being. And by that point, I think Shedeur was getting the exact same treatment that guys like Kaepernick and Tebow were getting while they were pros, which is they were at the point in time in their career where they weren't getting a job, they were better than a lot of backup quarterbacks in the NFL. But why weren't they getting a job? Because the backup quarterback should not have any headlines with them whatsoever. He's just there in case your quarterback goes down. So, the Tebow thing was all about his Christianity, praising Jesus all the time, and Kaepernick was obviously the Black Lives Matter movement and stuff. And it didn't have to do with those things. It had to do with all the circus of like the media just jumping on that story. The media just making it so much bigger than it needed to be, both of those. And that's why I think it's funny that the media is questioning why Shedeur's fell that far, when I'm thinking, yeah, you guys are kind of responsible for that, because all you're going to do is just keep asking and bothering the team about, hey, when's Shedeur going to play? Like, when's Shedeur going to get a chance? When that's not that the backup quarterback. No, there should not be questions in your press conference.
Cam Ward went number 1 overall, and it was a 0-star recruit coming out of high school.
Exactly.
And Shedeur's the one getting all the attention.
Yeah.
That comes with being Dion's kid.
Yeah. So, yeah, and so the team just didn't want that with the backup quarterback. And, yeah, going back to what you said about the Browns, though, I don't – of all the teams that would have taken them, I'm surprised it was the Browns. But then I'm thinking, yeah, is it really that surprising? Because they have no positives going into the year. They need some kind of fun story to, and people are comparing like Shedeur's attitude and stuff. So like guys like Baker or Johnny Manziel, even though they were cocky and they got picked first overall. And I thought, yeah, there's some sense to that, even though Manziel did fall a little bit. But then I was thinking, all those guys were drafted by Cleveland. So it just makes,
you're right.
So the more you think about it, the more it makes sense. But I mean, the Browns now have 5 quarterbacks on their roster. If you count Watson, who's probably going to miss the whole season. But I mean, they traded for Kenny Pickett. They signed Flacco, and now they have 2 rookies. I mean, a team never has 4 quarterbacks on their active roster, so it's possible one of those guys will get cut.
Yeah,
it could be Shedeur. Who knows?
And just think about in practices. I mean, you only get a limited amount of reps in every practice, and it's going to be skewed towards the starters and the backup. you get to that third string and you're splitting time with Dylan Gabriel. If you're Shedeur Sanders, you're not going to get much airtime, right? And it's just crazy why. And I see it as a power move by Jimmy Haslam, the owner of the Cleveland Browns, to do that.
Well, if you saw the clip of, did you see the clip of the coaches in the front office after they?
Yeah, Stefanski didn't look like he wanted to kill himself.
Yeah,
like
it was basically.
Yeah,
they all look exactly like that. Yeah.
I don't think that was their decision, and I mean, we've seen it before. I don't think any of them wanted Deshaun Watson, but I think that was an owner move as well. So it just follows a pattern. You'd expect Flacco to be the starter coming into this, and Pickett most likely being the backup. I mean, you don't just go get those two guys in free agency if you're not going to have them get valuable minutes and reps. But yeah, just crazy storyline. It's going to dominate the NFL world for a while. And hopefully it dies down once we don't see Shedeur playing at all, most likely.
I have nothing against Shedeur. Like,
yeah.
Because some of the throws he had in college are like, wow, if he can do that in the NFL, that'll be so fun to watch.
Well, yeah, and I don't think he's a bad person. I just don't think he handled the pre-draft process the way you should. Because, I mean, if you look at some of the guys like Baltimore took a guy who's been accused of sexual harassment in not only high school, but college as well. I mean, teams take flyers on so many of these guys, and if you produce it to them, it doesn't matter. So for him to drop as far as he did, I mean, these teams just didn't like him, didn't like who he was, everything that comes with him, and what that would mean for their team. What I would have loved is that we would have had Hard Knocks for the Giants this offseason. That would have been a lot of fun to see the interview he had with Brian Daboll. But yeah, looking at the rest of the draft, I don't know where you want to go next. I have so many notes here. We could start in this first round. I know with Cam Ward going number 1 overall to Tennessee, it was a done deal. It obviously got overshadowed immediately with the trade between Cleveland and Jacksonville at number 2. Your thoughts on Cam Ward going to Tennessee and just what that means for the Titans moving forward?
Yeah, Tennessee is not a big market. Cam Ward's got a cool story, but boring compared to other storylines in the draft. So it was definitely forgettable. Not as forgettable as Trayvon Walker to the Jaguars a few years ago. Like, people often forget who even the first overall pick was in that draft. But yeah, I mean, the Titans, if they're picking first overall, they have several holes in their roster. So I don't think it's going to be an immediate success. We're not going to see a Jaden Daniels or CJ Stroud type first season, but he is in a weaker division, and I feel like if the Titans got it right, just taking the best quarterback available with the first overall pick.
Definitely. Looking at the trade between Jacksonville and Cleveland, I thought Jacksonville was really reaching on this pick. I get that you're going after the top talent in Travis Hunter, but what they gave up to Cleveland, Cleveland received the 5th pick in the first round, basically swapped the 2nd and the 5th, a 2nd round pick, a 4th round pick, and a 2026 first round pick. Did you think that was one-sided or what?
Yeah, it's whenever you're like doing an overall grade for the Browns draft, for me it was perfect, and it may still be perfect if Shedeur or Gabriel turns out good. Yeah. But I mean, it was perfect up till the quarterback situation, because I mean, the only way the Browns look like fools if Travis Hunter turns into like an absolute megastar, which he could. I think he'll be good, even though I do think now that he's in Jacksonville, he might be cursed and not produce at what we think he's capable of. But the Browns just moving down 3 spots, getting an elite defensive tackle prospect in Mason Graham, and then getting the Jags' high 2nd overall pick. And then I don't have much expectation for the Jaguars next year unless Trevor Lawrence plays like what we thought Trevor Lawrence was going to be. So that first round pick is probably going to be a pretty good pick next year too, along with the Browns' own first round pick. So, oh yeah, it was a wonderful trade for the Browns. I think that's definitely one positive thing that should take away from the draft. There might be more in the future though.
Yeah, and for the Jaguars, they do get Travis Hunter. They pair him up with Trevor Lawrence. Maybe that'll jumpstart something on the offensive side. And I would say their London game, since we can 100% expect the Jaguars to play in London next year, they become a lot more interesting and probably will allow me to make myself get up early on Sunday mornings to watch those London games. Going down farther into the draft order, we had Ashton Genty go top 10 to the Raiders. And I really feel like the Raiders organization is filling out right now. They get a good weapon on the offensive side. They bring in a reliable, stable quarterback. They bring in an experienced coach, successful, as well as Chip Kelly at the offensive coordinator. They get the right guy at GM. Things just seem to be filling out. They've got a good weapon with Brock Bowers at tight end. Obviously, they've got one of the best edge rushers in Crosby. So I think they've got a lot of good pieces. Obviously they're in one of the toughest divisions in the NFL, so I still see them as a fourth place team, third at best. But then looking at the Bears at number 10, they select Colston Loveland. And this was a pick that added another weapon for Caleb Williams. Now he's got, I've never seen a second year quarterback have this much going in his favor. And so this is when you start to really realize, okay, it's on him now to get this done. He's got Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, now Colston Loveland, and a bit of a revamped O-line when you factor in the two guys that Ben Johnson brought in Dolman and Tooney. So it's on Caleb now. So I don't know.
And they Cole Kmet as another tight end, and Luther
Right.
Burden, who they drafted in the early second round, who's some projected as a late first round pick. Yeah, Caleb's going to have a lot of weapons to work with. I don't know if they. Yeah, I don't know. They may have too many where they may have forgotten about other positions in the that are on the team. That's my only concern because I liked Loveland as a prospect. His numbers don't look good, but if you saw his horrendous quarterback play at Michigan, his numbers were excellent.
Yeah.
For what he was dealing with. And then Burden from Missouri is another really good receiver. But, yeah, I just don't know. You see this a lot, though. Some teams just get too much of one thing, and that just kind of – it doesn't work. I think all the pressure is on Williams now, especially with an offensive-minded coach. All these weapons. He's expected to make a year two jump. And I think it might be better because a lot of times you hear sophomore slump. That usually happens from somebody who had an excellent rookie season.
Right.
I wouldn't say Williams had an excellent rookie season. He didn't have a bad rookie season, but it wasn't excellent by any means, which I think puts him in a good spot to actually excel in year two.
Yeah.
And then as for the Raiders, I love the Genty pick. I think a lot of people had that seeded in, and it made sense. It just perfect fit. Yeah, it's a shame the Raiders are in the AFC West because they do have Geno provides such a low ceiling. He has a high floor, but such a low ceiling. You know exactly what he's going to give you and what he's not capable of doing, and you're just kind of stuck in that zone. It kind of depends on how good the rest of his team is to get them over the top. But yeah, they're in such a tough division that I don't know if it'll make much of a difference. But if they can keep this young group of guys together when they do eventually draft a quarterback or trade for a young quarterback whenever, they could be a potentially scary team in the future.
Yeah, and I know Chip Kelly, he's a run first guy, and he's got the exact right guy to head that running game. And we've seen Pete Carroll coach plenty of amazing running backs in his time. So I think it just kind of works out perfectly for them. It's just the division they play in. And so with the pick with Loveland to the Bears, that freed up a potential for the Colts to get their guy, and it was a guy that you talked about last week, and that's Tyler Warren. Colts got their weapon at tight end. What do you think?
Yeah, in any mock draft I did by myself, I always expected Warren to go to either the Jets or the Bears, and I always expected Loveland to be the one that the Colts would pick up. But once Loveland was off the board and Warren wasn't taken by the Jets, obviously, earlier, I was really getting antsy that, oh, wow, this could actually happen. And then when Roger Goodell announced the 12th pick to the Cowboys and he said, Tyler Booker, I got, like, my heart froze for a second because I thought, the Cowboys seriously going to do this again? When last year the Colts could have got Brock Bowers, but the Raiders for some reason thought they needed him, even though they just drafted a tight end.
I did understand the Cowboys pick was Zach Martin retiring. So
oh yeah, absolutely. But I was worried that they were going to get Warren when they already had Ferguson. I was like, not again. That's exactly what happened last year with the Raiders in front of the Colts. But oh yeah, it's perfect need. If it's what Colts need, they've been lacking tight end for a long time. Eric Ebron, I believe, was the last one who was really effective. Jack Doyle was decent, but nothing. He didn't really scare anybody. But yeah, Warren's just an absolute weapon. He can block. He can run routes, and that's exactly what you need to help a young quarterback. You just need a tight end to run like 5-yard outs. Just make it easier on your young quarterback, and that's what the Colts were lacking these last 2 years with Richardson. But I will say one other thing about the Colts. So Warren always stood out to me. Anytime you'd watch a Penn State game, you're like, this guy's a pro. The Colts' second-round pick, you might know him from Ohio State, JT Tuimoloau.
Yes.
He was I completely forgotten about him, but when they picked him, I was like, well, I actually remember watching him multiple times in their game against Penn State and in the college football playoffs, was watching him thinking, yeah, that guy's a pro. He made so many plays, and I'd forgotten about him because I guess Ohio State had so many other players that they kind of all get.
I mean, they had 14. They set a school record with 14 draft picks, and their two best players aren't even eligible, and Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, mock draft next year is Downs pretty high. I checked this morning. But yeah, I was another pick I was excited about for the Colts.
But yeah, and I mentioned the Jackson Dart pick for the Giants, getting picked over Sanders with that late first rounder. They traded up for that one. I guess he's the guy for the future. I'm not sure. For one, being behind Russell Wilson, I think the Russell Wilson is just for 1 year, but I don't love him being behind him, as well as I don't love the Giants going after basically another Zach Wilson, like the Jets had. These New York teams, they just like to pick guys that, for me, are system guys. I think Jackson Dart was a guy within the Auburn system, right? It was Auburn. Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin, his system, which is just designed for the quick hitters out. I just don't know if it was the right pick for the Giants, and we could see them drafting another quarterback in a future draft, like very soon.
Yeah, I didn't watch too much Ole Miss. The only times I did watch them was whenever they were on upset alert. So that was my exposure to Jackson Dart. I watched their loss to Kentucky and Florida, and yeah, he didn't look very good in those games. But when you look at his numbers from the wins, he performed pretty well. But, I mean, it was obvious why they did this. Their 2004 rookie quarterback from Ole Miss was Eli Manning. So they're going to hope to replicate that again with another Ole Miss quarterback. I just don't know if I see this one working out or not.
Yeah. And then the next biggest story in the first round for me was Atlanta trading up to the first round with the Rams, and the Rams getting the second rounder that they traded up for and a 2026 first round pick. I think Les Snead and the Rams swindled Atlanta, and Atlanta was too dumb to go for it. And it's just Atlanta doing Atlanta things. The signing of Kirk Cousins last year and how that has imploded. They finally get an edge rusher, which they've just never had. But what they gave up for the Rams that potentially that first round pick is going to be a top 10, top 15 pick, because I don't see the Falcons being very good next year.
So the Falcons have, in all of my memory of watching NFL, have always had a best and mediocre defense. Like even their Super Bowl team, like it was their offense that carried them. So yeah, they doubled down in the first round on linebackers and edge rushers. They got Jalen Walker with a 15th pick, which I thought was an excellent pick because he was projected by many a top 10 pick. So I thought I could argue that was a steal. But not only did they trade up, they selected a guy who has major character issues, James Pierce Jr.
Yeah.
He last year, like early mock drafts for this past year, at the end of last draft, it's kind of confusing, but they had Pierce like really high, but his numbers severely declined the next year, and there's been questions about his motivation. Like if he even cared. Like I think he's even said stuff that's kind of alluded to that. Yeah, the Falcons, gave up a first round pick for him. Now his potential is really high. Obviously, if he was projected that early on, then but to me it was an absolute reach. I mean reach by trading your first round next year.
Yeah, definitely.
Because where he was picked was about where he should have been.
Right.
But to trade up and get rid of it.
This is, to me, this was not a draft to trade up. This was a draft to trade back, and anyone who traded back won in the long term and got a bunch of draft capital, which the Rams did, and it works out for them next year because they could end up using both of those first round picks for a top free agent or there's just so much you can use.
The Rams hate first round picks. They've only had one in the last decade, it feels like.
Exactly.
So, I could easily, something
I do want to ask you, what was, I guess, your favorite pick? This could be any round. What was your top pick that someone got?
I'll just say what my favorite team's first two picks was.
Okay.
I love what the Ravens do. They've done this in the past. Like they got Kyle Hamilton a few years back, and they got Nate Williams. They did it again with Malachi Starks.
I love this pick.
Yeah, and you just know they've got it right. But I mean, you alluded to the other guy they got, Mike Green. Yeah, he has major off the field issues, but he was also a projected first round pick, and they got him at the very end of the second round. So, I mean, that might also be one of the bigger steals in the draft. And then the other one I like was Jahad Campbell of the Eagles. I feel like the Eagles addressed a need from what they've lost. They've lost defensive guys in free agency, and Campbell from Alabama might fit right in. Yeah.
Definitely. I would say my favorite was when the Chargers picked Omarion Hampton. This was just such a hardball pick. He's a build from the middle out, run game. It just fit perfectly with his design. And Omarion Hampton is a dog. I mean, I have the college football video game, and he's unstoppable, and he's a lot like that in real life as well. And he was kind of overlooked, I feel like, in parts of this draft process. Obviously, Ashton Genty took most of the attention, but I think the Ohio State running backs were getting a lot of attention coming in. I think they were building up a lot of momentum. They ultimately get picked very early on in the second round by Cleveland and New England. But I thought the pick of Omarion Hampton for that offense, with the injury struggles of their current running back, I thought this was a great pickup for him.
Do you have any least favorite first round or second round pick?
I mean, looking at some of them,
I'll tell you not
one in the first round. I don't really see
one. I'm not a huge fan of I'm not a huge fan of the Bengals taking Shamar Stewart because he's a project. Now the Bengals defense was awful last year, and I feel like they need a guy who can just immediately step in and contribute. And that's not to say Stewart could turn into something incredible in a few years, but he was arguably the biggest defensive project that was projected to be that high in the first round, and he fell to the Bengals. So, yeah, I don't know if their defense will be any better.
I got one. Yeah. So I didn't love the wide out from Arizona, Tedero McMillan going that
Carolina.
early. Carolina needs weapons, but I think for this type of player, the type of wide receiver he is, he's not a guy that creates a lot of space. He's not a streaky, really fast wide receiver. He's a guy. He's kind of like a Calvin Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald. He can go up and get it, but I think when you're going from the Big 12 to the NFL, if you think you can just go up and get it just like you did in the Big 12, and it wasn't an altogether fantastic season from him, so I thought he got drafted a little high, but it was a weaker draft.
I did one receiver. Also, I do like the Emeka Buka to the
Yes.
Buccaneers because yeah, Evans and Godwin are aging and feel like missing more games lately than usual due to injury. So that if Ibuka turns out to be good, that's an absolute.
Yeah, I thought Tampa Bay had a great draft overall. I thought they definitely improved, and that pick, Ohio State was the first school to have a wide receiver drafted in the first round in 4 straight years. Goes back to Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave in 2022, Jackson Smith and Jigba in 23, Marvin Harrison Jr. last year, now Emeka Buka, and hopefully we get maybe Carnell Tate next year and then Jeremiah Smith the next year. So it's a wide receiver out at OSU. But yeah, any closing thoughts on what we had in the NFL draft? I know some notable players who went undrafted were guys like Isaiah Bond from Texas and Donovan Edwards from Michigan. So those were the two that really stuck out to me as far as players who went undrafted.
Yeah, Bond had the allegations, I believe, and off the field stuff going on. So that doesn't surprise. Well, it did surprise me that he went undrafted, but not surprising that he fell. Yeah, the Edwards one kind of surprised me a little bit. I thought he'd be a good late round running back, especially since some of the running backs taken in the later rounds I had not heard of. But when you watch their film, you can see why they were drafted. But now, closing thoughts. I just want to bring up one interesting stat I saw today, which is kind of crazy to think about, that the SEC has had someone drafted in every round since round 2 of 1993.
That's wild.
Yeah, that is pretty wild.
They've been pretty dominant for well over, basically 3 decades then.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But yeah, I really want to see Cam Ward do well in Tennessee, considering I'm here in the backyard of Nissan Stadium, basically. But yeah, him not getting a lot of attention in this draft because of the Shedeur thing, I thought was unfortunate for him. We already have a way too early 2026 mock draft that has the Browns taking Arch Manning at number 1, so they're just going to add another piece to that quarterback room.
I mean, I feel like the Browns would do that, but to me, that would mean they're giving up on both of their rookie quarterbacks after 1 year. I'm not a Browns fan, but I might even demand Haslam sell the team if he ended up doing that.
Yeah. Well, it's come and gone. The NFL draft, another year of top prospects looking to make their mark on the league. It'll be a lot of fun watching all these guys this upcoming season. We'll have plenty of more NFL news coming for you in the following weeks. We still don't know where Aaron Rodgers is going to go, I would assume, because Pittsburgh didn't pick a quarterback that he's got to sign there, and I don't think anybody else wants him at this point.
Well, they did get Will Howard.
They got Will Howard. Yes, that in the sixth round. Yeah, he's not starting. But let's switch gears to the NBA. We had some really good playoff games this past weekend. I want to start with the Lakers because that's fresher in our minds right now as they fall to the Timberwolves in Game 4 and are now down 3-1 in this series. It won't be no Lakers in 5 this year. What's happening with this team right now? Because they've got this great duo of LeBron and Luka, I know in last night's game or in yesterday's game, JJ Redick actually left in the same five guys for the whole second half. And it was the first time that ever been done in playoff history. I think what he was really wanting was that those guys would get off to extend a lead in the beginning of that second half, and it just never materialized. Ant had an incredible game and kept a minute the whole way, and so he just didn't sub anybody out for those guys.
Yeah, I thought that was Tom Thibodeau coaching the Lakers, which I'm kind of surprised. I'm surprised that that's never happened with the Thibodeau coach team. Maybe because one of their guys fouled out or something, but
or got hurt.
Or got hurt. That's probably a more likely explanation. But yeah, I mean that's just crazy, especially when you have a 40-year-old LeBron on the team. And I mean, what it really came down to in those games 3 and 4 losses, where the Lakers just kind of fell apart towards the end of the game. I mean, LeBron was scoreless in the entire fourth quarter in Game 4. Despite he scored 27 or 28, I believe, in the first 3, and he went absolutely scoreless. He did have some clutch defensive blocks, some steals in that game, but other than that, he committed some turnovers, took some dumb shots. It was kind of out of character for him.
Yeah.
And then, Game 3, the game before, the Lakers kind of came back and made it close, but then from the 4:37 mark, they only scored 1 point. So it's just kind of back-to-back, just kind of unclutch by the Lakers as a whole, which is kind of a shame because all the games, especially games 3 and 4 have been good games. It's a shame. I kind of wish it was a 2-2 series just for the entertainment aspect. But yeah, you're absolutely right about Edwards. I mean, 43 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. I mean, that's just
he had his moment.
He wasn't even a huge factor in games 1 and 2. I know they lost game 2, but game 1, like other guys like Naz Reid and Jane McDaniel stepped up
big time.
But but game 4 he went absolutely crazy, and Lakers now have to come back now from 3-1 against a team who's on fire right now if they want to advance to likely play the Warriors.
Right, and you mentioned Game 3. I thought the Lakers really wasted a LeBron masterpiece in that game. He went for 38 points, 10 rebounds. It was one of his best performances in the playoffs in a while.
Yeah, I forgot to mention Luka was reportedly sick that game, and you could tell. You could definitely tell.
Yeah, but in Game 4, I thought. I sent you a message after LeBron had that block, like, who's this old man blocking shots out here? And I thought that was going to be that moment that changed the tide in the game. LeBron finished with 27, 12, and 8. But and Edwards, he had a hell of a game, and he has the opportunity. And this is his resume in the playoffs right now. He's knocked out Booker and Durant in a playoff series. He's knocked out Nikola Jokic, who's looked at as the best player in the league. And now he has an opportunity to take down LeBron and Luka specifically, who knocked him out in the Western Conference Finals last year. So he's building up quite the resume at such a young age. And we've heard all the comparisons to MJ, not only just the way he plays, just the way he looks and the way he carries himself out there. And it's a pretty cool thing to see and very impressive in his young career. And he'd have an opportunity possibly next round to knock out Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors, just to notch those benchmarks into his resume. It would just be amazing.
Yeah. One last thing on the Timberwolves. Also give a good shout out to Julius Randle. I feel like he's really stepped up.
Yes.
Which not most people doubt him when it comes in the clutch moments of postseason time. But I think he's really stepped up. He's hitting an uncharacteristically amount of threes, which is good for the Timberwolves, bad for the Lakers. But I'm glad to see him playing well.
Definitely. And the Timberwolves have dominated the Lakers in the fourth quarter. To this point in the series, they're plus 30 in the fourth quarter. And that just, you're not going to win a series if you're the Lakers, if that's the type of closing finish that you're going to have in this series. There were a lot of points in this game where, the Jaden Daniels foul by Austin Reeves for the and one, when that really hurt them. And then obviously, the replay foul on LeBron against Anthony Edwards. That's still jarring to see in NBA games, to see a foul be called retroactively. But, the
Well, because like you can't challenge a non-foul unless there's a dead ball and it just happened to go out of bounds, and that's what they were reviewing. And so
it's kind of like
a huge break that went the Timberwolves' way. I mean, it was a foul, but I mean, it really wasn't that.
Yeah.
When you see some of the stuff that happens, it really wasn't that big of a.
Yeah, go and watch the Knicks-Pistons series.
Yeah.
They'd let that go.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then the Wolves get a great defensive stand on that last possession. Reeves got a good look.
People are criticizing LeBron for not taking the shot. I'm like, he passed it to a great three-point shooter who was wide open. I mean, he was. We should
already know this about LeBron. He's not just going to take the last shot because he's LeBron. He's going to find the best shot, and I think that's what he has always separated himself.
He would have had to really force something if he was going to take that shot.
Definitely. So looking the outlook of this series now with the Lakers down 3-1, are their playoff hopes basically, or their title hopes diminished? Because even if somehow they were to crawl back into this series and win it, they really needed this series to go 6 or less. And now there's no chance of that. And you're going to be going up against either Houston or Golden State in the next round. And to be as gassed as they are after this series, I just don't see their chances, even if they get out of this one.
No, but I do think they match up well with Golden State. But yeah, if Golden State takes care of Houston easily, they're gonna, and Lakers somehow come back and win Game 7, they're gonna be exhausted. And especially when you're only playing 5 guys in the second half, with one of them being 40. The Lakers just have no depth. They have no playable depth, according to JJ Redick, for the playoff time. Jackson Hayes hasn't been very good, which is really unfortunate because he's their only big guy. They're in a pickle. So.
They could have really used Mark Williams if that trade had just gone through. They could really be using him now. Let's go over to, where do you want to go from here? We got the Knicks, Pistons.
Talking about Golden State. We'll do Golden State, Houston now. It's just been a defensive series, but the more I watch it, the more I think Houston might be one of the worst 2 seeds of all time. They're a playoff team, but they're not. They're a horrible 2 seed.
They don't have that guy that can just be a bucket for them anytime down the court. Jalen Green has his moments, has his games, but it's not consistent enough.
No, he's hot and cold. And, I know. Credit Golden State's defense. I mean, they've played really good defense, but an NBA team should not be shooting less than 40% twice. Once you get a pass, twice in a series. That just cannot happen. In both of their losses, they also only shot 57% from the free throw line in both of those combined in those losses, which for an NBA team that's just horrendous. Now, credit to Golden State in Game 3 because Butler went down with that left pelvic contusion in Game 2.
Yeah,
and the Warriors played really well. Curry went off.
Curry played really well.
Yes, Curry's averaging 31. In the series right now, and it's all the games have been low scoring though because Warriors don't have any other options other than Curry.
Right. Really. This isn't your daddy's Golden State Warriors. This is this isn't the teams from the 2010s that were lighting it up from 3. It's a very different type of Warriors team, and it's been actually fun to watch because it's seeing them win a different way. And Curry just putting on a fantastic performance with 36 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds. This has got to be one of the best all-time old guy / little guy performance. It's inspiring, really. It's been an awesome treat to see him continue to perform this way and be reinvigorated in the playoffs.
Yes, one last thing. As we're recording this on Monday night, the Warriors-Rockets play Game 4 tonight.
Right.
I maybe Houston steals one more, but Houston just 1 year away for me.
Right. It's a
I
young
just don't
team.
see it. Yeah,
It's an impressive season to get that 2 seed. I like their team. I think if they either added a piece, I mean, we mentioned Durant before. I don't know if that's the right piece, but just a bucket. Just add a piece to the team that can bail you out on certain possessions.
possibly a guy up in Milwaukee.
True, and unfortunate news for the Bucks. Damian Lillard with the awful injury, and then he's out obviously for the rest of the playoffs. I don't think it would have mattered. I think the Pacers have that series in hand.
They may have rushed him back from his thrombosis in his calf, anyways, and because you could tell he wasn't his typical self
Right.
in the games he played. So.
Definitely. So we've got some series that are going to most likely be over with the Cavs playing tonight over the Heat. Obviously, the Pacers are going to be well on their way to moving on into the next round, as well as the Celtics over the Magic. I do think the Magic have given Boston a good test, which I think is good for Boston to be tested this early.
If the Magic somehow got an elite point guard, they would be one of the best teams in the league because like Durant or Giannis, because people are saying these are the trade pieces, they would not fit at all because they already have Paulo and Wagner. But if they just had a true point guard who was really good, the Magic could be a threat for a few years.
They should have went. They should have went and gotten De'Aaron Fox when they were looking. Yeah. But I think Paolo has been a huge success even now in the NBA because you could look at Orlando Magic's playoff history. They've been to the playoffs twice in the 15 years or so that before Paolo was drafted. And in the 3 years he's been on the team, they've been there twice.
Yeah. And
huge difference.
They played a great 7-game series last year against Cleveland, and they've put up Boston probably can't wait to get this series over with because Magic are just wearing them down, and I was surprised. I thought it'd be a clean sweep for Boston, but Magic actually pulled one off, and they've played really well in pretty much every game. So
yeah. And then we had that Knicks Pistons series come down to a questionable no call at the end of the game. A hobbled Brunson. Brunson went down earlier in that game, but continued to fight through it. Ended with 32 points, 11 assists. Karl Anthony Towns had an incredible game. Hit a big three towards the end of that one. He ended with 27 as they carried him to a comeback win. And they go up 3-1 in the series. The controversial no call on a potential foul on Tim Hardaway Jr.'s jump shot to end the game goes in the Knicks' favor. What were your thoughts on that one?
There's two ways to look at it. One way is they were letting them play. So, it was a foul, but when you're letting them play, there's lots of fouls that don't get called. And so from that perspective, it's just let it go. But the other perspective is that Jalen Brunson draws those fouls all the time. Jalen Brunson's he used to be so fun to watch. Now I just can't stand watching him because it's just a shame because he's really good. He just foul baits way too much, and it's just bothers me. And if I was Jalen Brunson in the corner, they would have called that a foul. Just no. So from that point of view, it bothered me. Another reason is that the last two games, game 3, the score is 118-116. Then yesterday, as we're recording this, it was 94-93. But it's 3-1. It's 3-1. Like you would much.
I have felt
2-2 series. Yeah.
I have felt that the Pistons have been the better team in this series. They just things haven't broken their way. I felt like they've just out-hustled, outplayed them on most of the possessions in this series. But it just hasn't worked out for him.
I will say, late game 4, Karl Anthony Towns took over. He was an absolute bucket in some of those last few possessions. Shout out to him. He finished with 27, but he had contested fadeaway. He had a contested 3. I think he had another layup, couple layups. That was incredible by him. But it's a shame. I I expect the Pistons to still put up a fight. They're not going to lay down Game 5, even
Right.
though they're down 3-1. But, yeah, this series is probably over. Just the Knicks have been here before, and
Right.
they're
And we're well on our way to seeing a Knicks Celtics series again, like we didn't get to see last year. So that should be a lot of fun.
It
That should
should
be a
be,
lot of fun.
but the Knicks also did not play well against great teams this past regular season.
True.
On paper, it should be a fantastic series. Boston, New York, stars on both teams, but the way the Knicks played in the regular season.
Right. I almost wonder if last year's team, if they were playing in this year's playoffs, if they had Hartenstein really, because feel like that's the piece that hurts them the most in terms of being able to have that presence down low defensively and just offensive rebounding, because he came up with so many offensive rebound putbacks for them in last year's playoffs. But yeah, we'll see what happens between that in that series. We also had a buzzer beater in the Denver and Clippers series, as Aaron Gordon got a dunk at the buzzer beater off a missed jump shot from Nikola Jokic, tied the series at 2-2.
Yeah, Jokic went crazy that game. He's been going crazy all series. He's averaging 28.5 points. He's averaging a triple-double for the series so far, which shouldn't surprise anyone. But yeah, 28.5 points, 13.5 rebounds, and just under 11 assists per game in the series. But in particular, that game 4, he had 36 points and 21 rebounds, and probably had the greatest air ball in NBA history. Because, yeah, that was a crazy ending. When you talk about buzzer beater, like, that was a legitimate buzzer beater.
I still think it didn't get in time. Like it wasn't off his hands.
I mean, maybe they'll do this in the future, but there needs to be cameras there need to be a camera in the rim to see, because the rim was blocking the view. Like, you couldn't tell if his fingertips were touching the ball still or not. But that was a crazy game, even before that, because the Nuggets had a huge lead, a 20-point lead, I believe. Clippers came back, took the lead, and then Jokic did a crazy, just magical footwork, crazy pivot move, hook shot over Zubac, and made that. And then Zubac got a tip in on the next possession, and then the crazy game winner happened. But yeah, this has been a fantastic series. Other than Game 3, every game's come down to the wire. Exactly what you want from a 4 versus 5 when both teams should be evenly matched up. And yeah, I'd be shocked if this doesn't come down to Game 7.
Yeah, and it's looking like our prediction, I guess we could say, of the Clippers having a better shot at moving on than the Lakers is ringing a little true for us here.
But there's a chance neither of them make it out. Obviously the Clippers are playing much better.
Yeah. Saw a little bit of playoff Harden in this last game, but definitely looking forward to a lot more action to come in this first round. First round should be over with by our next podcast. We'll be previewing semifinals.
If there are Game 7s, the last ones will be on Sunday. Yes.
Right. Perfect. So that'll set up nicely for us next week on that front. But let's talk about
one little other thing is that the Thunder are going to get a lot of rest. They've already completed their series, and they're going to take on the winner of Nuggets Clippers, who I just said it's probably going to go 7 games.
Yeah. Is that playing to the advantage of OKC or not?
I don't know. I will say the Grizzlies just got absolutely screwed in the playoffs multiple ways. For one, they are a horrible matchup against the Thunder. But 2, Morant got hurt whenever they were actually looking like they could compete in the series in Game 3.
29-point lead in that game.
And 3, I don't know what the NBA was doing scheduling wise. They had only one game. They never had 2 games off, and the Grizzlies even had the play-in game right before that. So it was the play-in game, day off, Game 1, day off, Game 2, day off, Game 3, day off, Game 4. And if they would have gone to Game 5, it would have been tonight when the Rockets Warriors is playing their Game 4, and both those series started on the same day. Like, that's just absolutely, I don't know what they were thinking scheduling this, but the poor Grizzlies just got screwed in every which way. But yeah, that's enough NBA talk. I just want to get that off my chest.
No, I'm totally in agreement with you. But looking towards baseball, all right, we got a little who's hot, who's not as we end April on a high note here with Eugenio Suarez recording only the 19th person to do this, to hit 4 home runs in one game. So shouts to that guy out with the Arizona Diamondbacks in a losing effort though, but a great performance nonetheless. But let's look at who's hot, who's not. I'll get started with the NL West. We know how good this division has been. This season, 4 teams with winning records. They have the best division winning percentage at 521 coming into today. And it's been impressive because the Dodgers aren't on top of the division. It's the Giants. So they've really impressed. A lot of fun watching them. Obviously, we know the Dodgers are stacked. The Diamondbacks still have a good core from their pennant-winning team from a couple of years ago. And we know the Padres still have a lot of talent with Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis.
Yeah, yet they are playing kind of cold right now, but
a little bit. And that division, it's been strong for most of the month, but it is slipping just slightly here as we head into May. But who's not? It's the AL Central. Worst division winning percentage at 471. White Sox on pace to break their own record from last year in terms of the worst record in history. It would be the worst back-to-back seasons ever by a franchise. And just the Twins underperforming has hurt that division as well as far as the division winning percentage. They have a lot of talent on this team led by Correa. It just hasn't been there recently. But again, long season, only a month down. Who's hot? The New York Mets starting rotation. So this rotation didn't look great coming into the season. They had injuries to Sean Manaea, Frankie Montas, and Paul Blackburn, which hurt the outlook for the rotation coming into the season. But they've done well despite it. They lead the majors with an ERA of 2.53, and that's a big reason why they're sitting in first place in the NL East. Also, they have Juan Soto, so that helps too. They got him, they got Pete Alonso, they got Francisco Lindor, and they've been playing really good baseball. They swept my Cardinals in a 4-game series, so they're playing as well as you could hope if you're a Mets fan, and both New Yorks are doing really well. But who's not is the Orioles rotation. So the departure of Corbin Burns, former Cy Young winner, hurt the rotation, obviously, as he went to Arizona. And it was just not addressed in free agency from to pick up anybody for that rotation. That they sit in last in the league with a 5.37 ERA. It was 6.22 when I checked it last week when I was building this out. So it was really bad. And the worst, the next place team is the Rockies. And, they play a mile above sea level, and they're always going to be bad. So if you're worse than the Rockies in ERA, you're really doing something wrong. Obviously, injuries to top guys Grayson Rodriguez and Zach Eflin have also exposed the lack of depth within the rotation. But obviously, when you have a great core of young hitters and Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson, Jackson Holiday, big names that they just keep pumping out like a factory down in the minors, you can tell that the biggest reason why they're sitting in last place in the AL East is because it's because of the pitching. But who's hot? Aaron Judge and the Yankees. So check this out. So Aaron Judge coming into today, he has a slash line that leads the majors, all 3 categories: batting average, slugging, on-base percentage. He's got a 408, 508, 714 slash line. He has a majors leading OPS plus of 251, which, just put it into context, the average is 100. So if you have an average of 100, you're hitting it league average in terms of on-base and slugging. He leads in WAR at 2.3 and has as many RBIs as they've played games. So he's got 26 RBIs. The Yanks, they're leading the AL East after I thought there would be a huge regression after losing Juan Soto to free agency. losing Garrett Cole to injury with the Tommy John surgery, but Max Fried has been huge for them. Basically, has slipped right into that ace role with Garrett Cole being injured, going 5-0 in his 6 starts with a 1.43 ERA. So impressive stuff by the Yankees. But who's not? Joc Pederson. So Joc Pederson set a Rangers record with 41 straight at-bats without a hit. His slash line coming into today was .077 batting average, a 189 slugging, and a 108 on-base percentage. He has no home runs, and he's coming off a very productive season with Arizona where he hit 275, 393, and 515. 23 home runs, 64 RBIs, and had the highest OPS plus of his career at 151. So crazy that he's performed this poorly, but hopefully he can get things turned around before we get into the warmer months. Who's hot though? Kyle Tucker on the Cubs. So his slash line coming in today, he's batting 300 with a 409 slugging and 600 on base percentage, 7 home runs, 8 stolen bases. He's got more walks than he has strikeouts. So that strikeout to walk ratio is looking pretty good for him. And this has just been one of the best free agent pickups in the offseason as the Cubs actually traded for him this past offseason with Houston. But this is a huge year for him, and he's making the most of it. He's eligible for free agency after the year. So great job by Kyle Tucker. We mentioned him a couple weeks ago with the player of the week. But we'll probably be talking about him again as the season goes on. But who's not? And I hated doing this one, but the St. Louis Cardinals road record. So the Cardinals coming in today are 2-11 when playing on the road. In 13 road games, they've been outscored 83-56. Pretty poor. They've been really good at Busch Stadium. They've gone 10-5, and that's why they're trying to hang around 500 as we speak. Playing the Reds right now in a 3-game series, the start of a 3-game series. So hopefully we see some success there. But the two worst road records in MLB history were the 1963 Mets and the 2010 Pirates, who posted a 17-64 record. Right now, the Cardinals are on pace for a 12-69 record. So not a record that I want to break. So hopefully we can get things turned around. But who's hot for the final 2 here? We're going to go with stolen bases. So stolen bases, the rule changes that have affected stolen bases have included the limit on pitcher disengagements from the mound. I think they only get 2 lookovers or throwovers to first or any base at that. The increase in the base size has affected steals as well, and the pitch clock inadvertently affecting steals as it just doesn't allow pitchers to have a lot of time to hold runners. So looking back at the past few seasons before the rule changes in 2022, we had 0.51 stolen bases per game. After the rule changes in 2023, we had 0.71 stolen bases per game. In 2024, had a modest increase at 0.74, but this year, so far, we're at 0.82 stolen bases per game, and it just tells me that stolen bases are coming back, and I love it. I love the movement of the game, and for a part of the game that's largely been forgotten for the past decade and a half, I love that it's coming back, and it's honestly gives more players opportunities because that could be a spot on the roster that wasn't there before because teams are utilizing stolen bases. Just having super athletic guy that you can just pinch run for somebody. So I love that. And who's not for our final one? Batting averages. This hasn't changed. Right now, the league average is at 239. If that holds, it would be the lowest since 1968. And if anyone knows about this year, 1968 was the famous year of the pitcher. This year ended up leading to the pitching mound being lowered to 10 inches from 15 inches. At that time, league average was 237. And only Carl Yastrzemski had an average over 300. He was the only player in the entire league that had an average over 300. So that was the lowest ever. So hopefully things can pick up as the weather gets warmer. This could just be a an April showers look at batting averages. But I also know that with better defenses being able to keep balls from being in play and the rising strikeout rate, which is at 8.36 per game, it's eighth all time right now for 2025. And that's another part of the game I want to see back. I want to see less strikeouts. I want to see more of those hit for average guys, the Tony Gwynns, the Pete Roses, just guys hitting for average rather than just power. But I think there's a lot of good things that we've seen in the first month of 2025, and I'm excited to see some more of it. Any thoughts on all of that I got over?
I got a winner and loser. Winner is the Chicago White Sox because they are not the Colorado Rockies. As we're recording this on April 28th, the Colorado Rockies are 4-23. If you do the math, that puts you at 27 games, which is a factor of 162. So it's easy math to multiply those numbers by 6. And the Rockies are on pace for a 24-win, 138-loss season. This does benefit the White Sox because people are going to forget about how terrible they are, and that the Rockies could actually break the White Sox record. And my loser is the Texas Rangers infield play at the end of the game from last night. Did you happen to catch that?
I did not.
Okay, how do you say the San Francisco Giants guy? Ramos is his last name. Is it
Elliot?
It's Elliot. The H is silent. Yeah, priest from Puerto Rico. That makes sense. Yeah, that was some. It was excellent base running by him, but I mean, basically, it was some described a little league walk off. It was a little league walk off that took place. Just a routine base hit that the Rangers made multiple errors on, and the Giants won last night off of that. And I just happened to see that highlight this morning. I thought that was one of the crazier plays I've seen this year.
Well, it's been a fun month of baseball. I've been able to catch some games throughout April. We'll be back again for more weekly recap coverage of Major League Baseball throughout the regular season. So stay tuned for all that. But let's finish off with a little fun event that we got coming up, and it's the Kentucky Derby we mentioned at the top of the podcast here. Always fun to watch. It's one of the most exhilarating 2 minutes in sports. And we don't obviously talk about horse racing too often, and it's probably the only time we will. Obviously, we've got some favorites in the field, as we always do, with Journalism at 3-1 odds. He coming off a win at San Felipe at Santa Anita. We have Sandman at 8-1 odds and Sovereignty at 8-1 odds. Sandman won the Arkansas Derby coming into this. Sovereignty won the Fountain of Youth Stakes coming into this one. I know my pick for this is Luxor Cafe. He's at 15-1 odds. And my big reason for this is that he's sired by former Triple Crown winner American Pharaoh. And I love the legacy storyline coming into this. We also have another one, an American Promise at 30-1, who was sired by Triple Crown winner Justify. So who do you got in this one?
So there's a few ways I interpret the Kentucky Derby. One is, and this is just a shame that you run out of time, but more often than not, the craziest horse going up when they're doing the show and they're all walking towards the gate, it's the craziest horse that usually ends up winning. Unfortunately, the betting lines close usually by the time you see who's going crazy. So, yeah, so it's funny. I do this every year. Like, I pick my winner, and before that happens, and then I make sure to watch how he's walking up. When he's totally calm, I'm like, oh, crap, it's over for him. But so I always go with the favorite. I usually do. The only thing that's holding me back this year is that renowned horse trainer Bob Baffert, who we see basically every single year except that one year, a couple years he was I think suspended for a little bit. Yeah. He has two horses in this field. He had Rodriguez and Gate 4, he's at 12-1 odds, and then Citizen Bull in Gate 1 actually, who has 20-1 odds. So you can never really count that guy's horses out. He's there every year. But in this segment, I will say the horse I'm rooting for out of gate 15 is Render Judgment. He is a long shot. He is 30-1 odds, but he was a horse that was owned by the late, great Toby Keith, who we all know tragically passed away last February due to stomach cancer. But he's always had a passion for horses, and it was his lifelong goal to get one in the Kentucky Derby. And so he was alive while this horse was alive, but it's great to see that he now finally has a horse that's made it to the Derby, and I'm going to be sure to rooting for that one. Might even put a little money on it just so I can cheer for it even more.
There you go. Well, it'll be fun to watch, and I think that's pretty cool. That adds another storyline to all of this. It's the most fun one to watch. Obviously, depending if we see a favorite win, then I'll really be watching for the Preakness and the Belmont to see if we can get a Triple Crown winner. Haven't had one since 2018 with Justify. They're usually like a cluster. You get a couple Triple Crown winners and a cluster of years together, and then there's a huge gap before you get another one. Before American Pharoah in 2015, it was like affirmed in 1977. So there was a huge gap then. So I'll definitely be watching on Saturday, trying to fit it in around all the other sporting events that I'm trying to watch. But
I don't know if anything will ever beat the 2022 Derby, where the Rich Strike, the late shoe-in because one of the horses was out. That was an incredible race. I still sometimes just go on YouTube to look up a video of that race.
Yeah.
It was just incredible. But but the downside of that is he's not gonna win no Triple Crown. So
right. We will be back with more Triple Crown watch if the same horse wins the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness. We will preview the Belmont for you guys. But that'll do it for us today. I think this was a great show for y'all. A lot of good topics here. And we'll be back next week for you guys. Check us out on YouTube or Spotify. We'll be back next week, y'all.